The Hitchhiking Ghost. It was a dark and stormy night, and Sarah was driving home from a friend's house. She had had a few drinks, and even though she knew she shouldn't be driving, she didn't want to stay over at her friend's place. As she drove down the deserted highway, she saw a figure in the distance, hitchhiking by the side of the road. At first, Sarah was hesitant to stop and pick up the hitchhiker. But as she got closer, she could see that it was a young woman, drenched from the rain and shivering from the cold. Sarah pulled over and offered her a ride. The young woman got into the car, and Sarah could see that she was visibly upset. She asked the woman what was wrong, but the woman didn't answer. Instead, she stared out the window, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. As they drove in silence, Sarah began to feel uneasy. She couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. She decided to break the silence and asked the woman where she was headed. The woman turned to face her, and Sarah was taken aback by her appearance. Her skin was pale and translucent, and her eyes were a haunting shade of blue. The woman spoke, her voice barely above a whisper, and told Sarah that she was headed to a nearby cemetery. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. She had heard stories about hitchhiking ghosts, but she had never believed them. She tried to shake off her fear and continued to drive. As they approached the cemetery, the woman asked Sarah to pull over. Sarah obliged, and the woman got out of the car. Before she walked away, she turned to Sarah and said, "Thank you for the ride. You have no idea how much it means to me." Sarah watched as the woman disappeared into the cemetery. She sat in her car for a few moments, trying to make sense of what had just happened. As she drove away, she couldn't shake the feeling that the woman was still with her, watching her every move. The next day, Sarah decided to visit the cemetery to see if she could find the woman's grave. As she walked among the tombstones, she felt a strange presence around her. She could hear whispers in the wind and felt a cold breeze on her neck. Finally, she found the woman's grave. It was old and weathered, covered in moss and dirt. Sarah bent down and read the inscription on the tombstone. It read, "Here lies Emily, beloved daughter and sister. Taken too soon." Sarah felt tears welling up in her eyes. She couldn't shake the feeling that Emily was still with her. She decided to leave a bouquet of flowers on the grave as a tribute to the hitchhiking ghost who had touched her life so deeply. From that day on, Sarah made it a point to stop and pick up hitchhikers, no matter how strange they seemed. She knew that she could be helping someone in need, just like she had helped Emily that stormy night. And every time she drove past the cemetery, she could feel Emily's presence, watching over her and guiding her on her journey.